Welcome back to episode 5. Oh my gosh.
The big one.
Episode 5 of Horsing Around with Luke and Austin. I am Luke.
And I am Austin.
And we are your two beautiful co-hosts of this here podcast. I was going to start off by shouting out Anthony. You taste delicious. I'm sipping on Anthony for this podcast.
Oh yeah, Anthony. Anthony, if you ever find this,
dude, you're so good.
we miss you.
We miss you so much.
Oh my gosh.
And we want to sip. I want to replace that Anthony with the real one. I want a sip of that. Different lighting, by the way. I just noticed it is good. I'd argue it's better. And also,
We looked like we had jaundice last time.
we're turning into The Simpsons slowly and slowly. Well, we got that natural lighting now. We can see foliage and.
Is that woman getting mugged?
Oh my gosh! Oh my gosh!
Plot twist.
Oh wow!
You know what was really crazy?
Oh, he's got a gun. Oh my god!
No. It's not. That's the woman who has the gun.
Oh, she just whipped it
Yeah,
out.
that's
on
the
him.
plot twist.
Oh my gosh, I didn't even see that. Hold on. Gotta get any fucking prescription.
Isn't that crazy?
Oh my god. Oh, he just knocked her. She just knocked him out. Clean. She didn't even need the gun. Oh my. Oh, she's. Oh shit.
Is she emoting on him?
She's doing the take the L dance. Oh, she just took his wallet.
Okay, word.
I think she might.
No reverse.
I think she actually might have just beat his ass and mugged him, but. Okay.
Power to you, girl.
Yeah. We're actually just in a loft in New York City. This is where this episode is being recorded from.
Our sign. I forgot about our sign. Keep yapping.
Could get that real quick. We need to start preparing a topic list, but I just assume each time that the ADHD will take over and I'll just think of something on the spot. Shout out this episode to all my people with ADHD. Diagnosed and undiagnosed. Austin's about to slowly creep it. Oh, there we go. There we go. There we go. Close up of the sign. Complex sign. But I was diagnosed at a young age with ADHD. My co-host here, Austin, I don't think he has it. He doesn't seem like the kind of guy that would have it. He seems a little too locked in at times. I can't relate. Honestly, the thing about the ADHD medication is, though, and it's what confuses me, if I take it, I feel more... Oh, wow. That seems very fitting.
I think it fits the vibe.
It fits the whole vibe.
Yeah.
But it's going to drive somebody crazy if they watch this.
Sorry, guys.
Oops. But I feel like throughout my life, I've met more people who've taken ADHD medication and they just don't have it. But like, how many people do you know who got like a fake Adderall subscription or something?
I don't really ask people their
I don't ask them their
narcotic
prescriptions,
intake.
but I feel like
do that.
But I feel like people who take Adderall. I used to work with a girl who like just took Adderall.
Well, I mean, I don't really care. You know, like I didn't know you took medicine for the longest time. It wasn't until you just started talking about it, and I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah, it's funny because I actually wrote a whole paper in high school about. That was maybe the most pissed off I've ever been. We had to write this long paper on a topic that we found interesting for the program we were in, and it had to be between 25 and 35,000 words, if I'm not mistaken. And I wrote, or 15 and 35,000. I remember that paper because I didn't know if I had to write it, and I was told maybe, and I wrote 25,000 words worth of content about like specifically ADHD and then ADHD medication and how it interacts with your brain. Come to find out, I didn't need to write that paper that I spent like 5 consecutive sleepless nights on that I'll never get back. And it shouldn't make me mad, but it does.
It does.
It does. But yeah, I used to know somebody who was on like Adderall every day. She actually went fishing through her car once when she had to do like an all-nighter and then work a shift at the store I used to work at. And she went digging through the backseat of her car for like her last Adderall that, mind you, she wasn't prescribed it. She just like bought Adderall off somebody.
It's a good look.
Which made me realize that, yeah, anytime you have to fish through your car.
Where is it? Where is it? Please.
Dude, you could be fishing through your car for a Hershey's Kiss. That still, none of that looks good.
Hershey's
drug or not.
Kiss.
Like if you're just
Because
like,
those are like drugs.
I meant like if you're digging through your car for anything like that, like I need a fix. I need a king size candy bar. That's probably a better example. Then
I get that.
it's not a good look for you.
No, I don't know people like that.
No, you don't know any
No.
Adderall. To be fair, I guess it's more
the
shameful.
majority of people I know are like weed smokers and occasionally like a crack kind of dude. I've met a couple of cocaine people, and I'm like,
Okay.
that's crazy.
Big difference between crack and cocaine.
Oh yeah, there's
Cocaine's like gentrified crack.
okay. I don't know drugs that well. You can clown me, but
The way I understand it is you cook coke with other stuff to make crack, but crack is significantly cheaper than
Cool.
cocaine.
I'll keep that in mind.
That's why like rich people do cocaine, but like people in dire financial straits who are drug addicts will be like
Crack.
crackheads.
Okay, I see
Yeah.
that. That makes sense.
I don't know how it affects your body any different. I know your teeth probably don't look too great on crack. Makes you skinny. Usually there's more of a negative connotation with crack, but people who do cocaine, I feel like people are like, oh, those people are like the elites of the world. Or
It's funny. And then,
ripping lines off
yeah,
coffee tables.
I had a friend that did cocaine. I played volleyball with him.
Sick. How'd that go?
There,
How'd that go?
there was like I didn't really believe it when people told me. He was like, "Yeah, he like loves that cocaine stuff," and I was like, oh, "Okay, cool, whatever." And I was like, I don't really believe him. But then I went to this tournament and he was cracked out, like going crazy. He did probably 5 laps around the gym, and was like full sprint the whole time, like hands up, like losing
Oh
his
my
mind.
God.
And I was like, oh, okay, maybe he is. Now I see it. It was really funny though. I mean, I guess not in retrospect, but
I mean, in the moment, you're like, that guy's up to something.
if I showed you the video, you'd think it's really funny. You'd be like, yeah, I could see it. He's on cocaine.
Yeah, that's one of those where I was a sheltered child, so I definitely didn't like I see somebody acting out, and my first thought is never like that guy's under the influence of something.
I'm always like, what a weirdo.
I'm never like
What's up with that guy?
I never for some reason I've been told before like I used to work at a pizza place, and there was a delivery driver once who came in and he was being really nice that day. He was prone to being like grumpy. Sometimes he was happy or whatever. He was really nice that day and he was very talkative, and I was just like, he's being really nice today. An hour later, he was sent home because he was delivering pizzas while completely drunk. He was just drinking and driving on the job.
But if it makes you happy,
yeah,
what the heck, pizza place?
he might be nervous driving, and he just has
What
to
in
have
the
a couple
world?
road beers
It's not fair.
to get it out of his system
It's
or
not
whatever.
fair.
Things have changed since last
Yeah,
time.
they have. For the worse.
We're talking about the same thing.
What are we talking about?
I was saying in the NBA Finals.
Oh, no, you didn't say anything about that. Why would I know that's what you're talking about?
I just thought we were on the same wavelength,
No,
but no.
goober.
Okay, fine.
Anyways, the NBA Finals.
Tyrese Halliburton is no longer a child of Satan. He's a child of terrorism.
Right.
He is
So they say.
turned.
Is it 2-2 right now?
It is tied 2-2. I think game, what is that? 5 is tonight.
Math.
Sorry.
Math's
I'm
hard.
a little rusty.
Maybe we should watch the whole game for this episode.
We should
just
include
talk about it.
all the footage in it too, so it's just completely copyrighted.
Mm-hmm.
But that'd be pretty cool.
That's fine. We should get into more formats.
Mm.
That'd be fun. You know, like reactions, other games,
Oh.
other knickknacks,
I was gonna say
educational things.
our TikTok, the most interacted now, newly most interacted TikTok that we've had is the one about your top
My top 10 NBA
10 with
list.
the honorable mentions.
Yes.
And
There's only 1 or 2 that were like, you're wrong. Though to
One-
be fair, he only
one
reached.
probably racist person was like Larry Bird should be number 1. Keep an eye on that person.
Keep an eye on that guy.
Put them on a watch list. They're going to commit a hate
Because
crime.
we asked them, we were like, white supremacy? Question mark.
Yeah.
And no reply.
They probably
So
were
they were
we've
like,
been outed.
no,
It's
deny,
some
deny.
It's an internalized white supremacy.
Yeah,
But we know
not
better.
really. I mean,
No, because then they're like, wait, I'm not racist. I just really like Larry Bird. But they are, deep down. And we just had to reveal that to the world. But it's whatever.
yeah, we found him though.
Sorry.
What was that?
Sorry, I was trying
Why'd
to
you
do
do
it.
that?
It was a little joke there.
I
But
was,
I couldn't.
I was just waiting for you to move on or say something.
Move on or say something. I'm so sorry, viewers. We're in a different location. We mentioned that we had better lighting, but we now are in a different location, which some of you might remember as the first location. Just a different
But
wall.
backwards.
But backwards, yeah, just a different wall. This one has a chalkboard.
I went and looked for chalk for
Get
how
mad.
long? How long was I looking for chalk?
You were looking for chalk for like 15 minutes.
Yeah, I couldn't find any.
When there was no chalk in the building.
No chalk in the building. I would have put up a very sweet message or a nice drawing.
Well, we can just
You know
imagine
what I would
it.
draw.
So what would you... Okay, probably a big
Editor,
old wiener.
put in the drawing right here. Okay, now a little bit coming off the top.
Okay.
Some things right here. Some accessories around them. You know what I'm talking about.
Accessories.
This will make so much sense when you see it. Okay, yeah, we'll leave it there. I was going to offer like a third party as well, but no.
Okay. A third party.
All right. This will be really cool. And now it's gone.
Dude, you're putting a lot on my plate.
No, it's fine. I do it too. I'm an editor too.
Oh yeah, you'll just do that part.
on my talks.
You'll do that part. You'll do
Yeah.
that part. This will just be the footage and formatted version of it. So
Yeah.
don't worry about it.
Yeah.
Don't worry about it, world. I'm on top of it. I got a new hat in this episode.
I was actually thinking about how you mentioned you liked baseball last episode.
I do.
And you're like, I'm not going to say which team I like because they're doing really poorly. And now you're wearing a hat with that same team.
They're doing pretty good now. For now, they're still 10 games under 500, which in baseball, you're not even halfway through the season. That means not too much yet. However, it's going to get harder soon for all you Orioles fans out there who are riding along with me. Austin has to be won by association, even if he doesn't care about the sport. So, we actually in baseball yesterday, like last night, the somewhat equivalent version of a Luka Doncic trade just happened in baseball, where the Boston Red Sox, I know you know that team, their franchise cornerstone, who'd been there since 2017, 2018, he was like 20 years old when he started playing for them. They signed him to like a 10-year, $330 million contract or whatever. And they traded him last night to the San Francisco Giants in like basically a big salary dump. They got two decent players back. The other two are not that great. But they basically just did like a huge salary dump because they were getting frustrated with him. And out the door, they shamed him, just like they did Luka Doncic. Not weight issues, but they said, public statement said, we don't think he's worthy of the contract we give him. Which is crazy because, my brother, you gave him the contract. No one made you guys sign that off. Which, again, baseball contracts are insane. It's the only American sport that doesn't have a salary cap. Like, of the major four sports, it's the only one without a salary cap. So, feasibly, you could pay a baseball player any amount they want. Highest paid right now is 15 years, $765 million. So, which is not annually, but
Which is all right. It's not bad.
it's light work for me and him. I think we made that that amount of money. You and me make that.
I think I made that last quarter.
Yeah, I was gonna say last week, but yeah, whatever. I mean, we work differently.
Whatever.
Yeah, or whatever.
Do you know that guy on TikTok, Zacharific?
Zacharific. I knew you were gonna say that. He faked his way into success.
No. He didn't. No, he's not a faker. He's a manifester. He manifested
That's a good
his
point.
life.
You're right.
Okay, because he was just like, yeah, I'm like that. Like type shit. Whatever.
Oh my god.
Oh, that's so embarrassing. I dropped my 50K on the ground. Let me pick it up with my same arm that's got like the rollie on it.
My favorite video is one he did with Bryce Hall where he's like at a poker table and he's like got his phone set up in the most obvious position where it's like facing on a stack of like poker chips. And he's just like, yeah, I'm gonna go all in. And he's just like doubles his money or whatever is like the joke. And then the phone like lights up and it was like the caller ID was like Scarlett Johansson. And he like denies the call. He's like, sorry.
He's like,
she's getting a bit clingy.
Scarlett, Sydney Sweeney, that other Sydney from the Jake Paul fight. Sydney Thomas, is that her name?
Sydney.
The other blonde one. I don't. It's not important. It's not important.
It's not important.
But then, literally, I think
Thomas.
Sydney Thomas was one of the ring girls for the Jake Paul, Mike Tyson
I've
fight.
seen her before.
Yeah.
We're gonna do a little research while you're talking.
He was like talking about her. I was like, yeah, I hit her up like 2 weeks after I broke things off with Sydney Sweeney. And then I literally saw him at a baseball game with that girl, Sydney Thomas, sitting next to each other.
He got like on the Jumbotron,
yes.
at the St. Louis
Yes,
Cardinals
and
game.
I'm just like, he just manifested his whole life.
They
And
announced him.
Dude, we looked at his net worth, and he's like actually a millionaire
That's crazy.
because of this.
But I saw what you were talking about where he's on the scoreboard and they announced him over the PA as like the St. Louis Cardinals' most humble fan, and he's just like sitting there counting the money, and he's like, "Whoa, whoa, you caught me."
He's so funny, bro.
That's the thing. I guess it takes that, like, even the videos with other people. There's like the video he's got with Jake Paul where Jake Paul's like, I'm giving you a full stock, like Mercedes-Benz, like G-Wagon or whatever. And he's like, you said Mercedes-Benz? I'm good. I got like several cars better than that. So
Yeah.
my apologies.
Oh, this will look really good next to my identical one that I already have.
My other 4 in 4 different colors.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, is this stock? No modifications? It's not, whatever. That's light.
It's dead weight financially.
Yeah. I got to pay insurance on that. Boo. Do you have dreams? Sorry.
I have dreams.
I should have phrased this as a different question. We can get into both ways. I meant that. Do you dream when you sleep?
Oh, you mean literal dreams? No, I thought you meant like my obscure dreams. Sleeping dreams?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, let's start with sleeping dreams.
Yeah, okay, we can get into
heavier
this before we get into my greatest hopes and fears. Yeah, I have dreams. I feel like I get less as I get older, to be honest.
Dang, that sounds like a life lesson. You start dreaming less when you.
I mean, it's true though.
When life really punches you in the face.
It's true. That's how it works. I think my most recognizable dream to me was my very first nightmare.
Oh.
I feel like I might have told you about this, but I was in like 4th grade,
I think I know.
and we went to the Washington D.C. trip,
Mm-hmm.
and there was a wax museum. And for some reason, I was like night at the museum, only child in there in the wax museum, and all of a sudden I walked down the hall with my flashlight, and there was this like Scooby-Doo looking knight in shining armor figure, and then I heard like the metal like it shuddered, and I turned around. I was like, oh my gosh, did it move? Is it alive? And then he like looked at me, and then he took off his helmet, and you'll never guess who he was underneath the helmet.
Who was he?
The Fox and Socks from Dr. Seuss. Do you remember that guy? Here's a picture of him right here. This guy's head was on like a medieval knight's body.
I thought this was gonna be something
And
so much more intimidating.
No, he started chasing me like crazy.
Oh my god.
Yeah, and I was running around this place, and I think in Dreamland he chased me for a good hour or so. I don't know how
In
long it
reality,
actually
you're
was.
probably kicking and screaming in your bed. No,
please
stop, Fox, please.
No. Yeah, I don't even know his name, but that
I
was
think
him.
it's just the
I've never even
Fox.
read that book. I don't think
I used to love Dr. Seuss, so
he beat his wife.
I thought he cheated on her.
I thought he did both actually.
I thought he cheated on her because she was dying of cancer, which doesn't make
You
it
might
any
be right.
better.
What do I know?
My favorite
You were
Dr.
close
Seuss
to the
book
guy.
was we were tight.
Yeah.
But I'm pretty sure he died before we were born. But we were tight. Oh, the Places You'll Go, which is like a pretty inspirational book about the places you'll go. But I always loved the artwork in that book. It always.
Did he illustrate?
I thought so.
I thought he had a different person.
Oh, well, if he did, shout out that person and fuck
Real.
Dr. Seuss.
That's what I'm saying.
Dr. Seuss, you're my op now. Till the day my bones decay.
You were just talking about how tight you guys were.
Friendship over.
Out the window.
Friendship over, Mr. Seuss.
Now there's bad blood.
You're not a doctor to me. You're little bitch Seuss.
This feud will last for generations.
Mm-hmm. I'll tell my kids about it.
And I think it'll be very one-sided.
Anyway, actually, I was going to say, talking about dreams, not even me, my mom, her senior year in high school, she remembers this, this very specific nightmare she had, where almost like at the end of Castaway, have you ever seen it? Where he's like got the map on the hood of his car at the crossroads and there's like nothing around and he's like, oh, where will my life take me? She was at one of those type of like just nothingness crossroads, which is honestly kind of serene to me, but not if you see other people, a lot less serene. But in this dream, she said she was at a crossroads and Satan was there dressed like Chester the cheetah.
Shout out.
Wearing
Chester
a leather
the cheetah.
jacket, but she knew it was Satan. And
Nothing gets past her.
But she knew in the dream, she's like, that's Satan though.
That's the devil.
And she said in the dream, he said, you are the fabric and I am the needle and I will pierce you.
Your mom said that?
And that's what Chester said to her in the dream. Satan / Chester. She said that's what he said in the dream. And then she woke up and she's never forgotten it. It's the only dream she thinks she can ever remember.
So she believes it was literally the devil.
I don't think she does. She just thinks it was really trippy.
So
she's more confused that she remembers
No, she thinks it's literally the devil. She thinks she has a direct line of chat.
It's funny to
to
me
the devil.
how dreams work, though. Also, yes, my mom does talk.
We can
to
talk
Satan
about
often.
the devil later. That's always a fun chat.
Talk about the devil.
Yeah.
But the fact that dreams, like, unless you write them down, you just would forget them. Like, there's so many dreams I've had, probably within the last week, where I wake up and I'm in the shower and I'm just losing the memory of the dream.
It is really sad.
But I just know,
Yeah.
like, that dream was fucking
Vivid.
great. That was
Yeah.
an insane dream.
Yeah, for real.
And I was having, like, a trippy time. But by the time I wake up, it's gone. That is sad, which I guess you'd want to save the memories for real things that happened in your life.
Whatever, man.
Not
Speak for
dreamland.
yourself. I'd rather be fantastical. No, but I do relate to what you mean a lot. A lot of times I'll like have a dream, wake up, and then
I want to tell people.
and I'll know what it is, but then I go back to sleep and then I forget it the next time I wake up.
I want to tell people, and then I'm like, oh, dude, I got to remember this. And then by the time I'm like telling somebody in my family or whatever, I'm like forgetting key details that were so cool to me earlier, like so vivid. And I'm like, no, I can't remember this part, but I just know I was distressed. I've had more nightmares recently about real life events.
You poor guy. Do you think the devil is involved with those as well?
No, I just think that
Maybe your family's cursed.
I think that I have almost like a paranoia type fear and anxiety of things that happen in my life. So I'm like, oh no.
Aw. Do you
Oh
want to
no,
talk
it's out of
about
my
it?
control.
Do you want to talk about it?
I don't know. Maybe. I just started having a panic attack. live on
Anyways,
this
I don't really
episode.
care anymore, so we're gonna move
Oh,
on.
whatever. I'm just like
Let's-
crying. You're like, please shut up.
I don't care. Would you guys be there Would you guys be there for me if I was going through something? No. I hope that you come and talk to me, ask me for help, so I can say no.
Just so I can shut you off.
Yeah, I love that TikTok. That's funny. Anyways, the literal devil.
I was gonna say, do you want to talk about your real life dreams first?
My real life? No, I don't have those.
Like, do you have vague like?
This is my dream.
I
Luke.
want to.
We're living it right now.
I want to drop cash on a 2-story house, or like I want to be financially independent.
Those dreams sound really boring.
Okay, let's get into some real dreams then.
Okay.
Do you really want to work a 9 to 5 till you're 65 and retire?
Well, of course not. No one does, right? I don't know that, Luke. You know I don't know what I want to do with my life.
I mean, I don't
You
know,
know
if
that
I
for
do,
a fact.
do know what I want to do with my life.
You know I have
either,
no idea.
which is scary. But I just, oh God, here it comes. I'm gonna have a dream about this later.
Ooh,
/ nightmare.
Ooh, job application. Ooh.
Actually, I'm working 2 jobs right now, so.
Whatever.
Um,
Whatever, man.
Anyway, the devil. You seem very adamant about that. How do you feel about
I think it's a very interesting conversation I like to have with
the
people.
literal devil?
Yeah. So, listeners of the chat, you guys know that I have a background in Christian faith and whatnot, and so Luke, I don't know exactly what you are. What are you?
White.
I thought you were a male again.
I'm 5'6".
Do you identify with a religion at all? Are you agnostic? Or are you any kind of Christian?
It's hard to put a needle on this. It floats.
It floats for sure.
I don't know. Depends on the day.
I understand. But anyways, I like to have this conversation with a lot of other Christians, especially people whose belief system has a devil or character like that. And I just like to ask what their thoughts on him are, or if they even believe he's a real thing. So do you think the devil is actually a real person?
I mean, to be fair, I can answer all this because I have a background in like a very solid Christian faith, whether that has changed since in the last couple of years. When I was a kid, I feel like the devil, I don't know. I remember asking a lot of questions as a kid, like, is the devil also Satan, or is the devil like Lucifer? Like, are they the same thing? That confused me as a kid, but the devil was always just like, when I was younger, I assumed it was just like a guy with horns who lived in some underground gnashing teeth lair.
But did you believe that was a real thing?
I mean, I thought he was real. I was like, God, never want to meet that guy.
Right.
I thought he was real. I didn't think he lived on this earth. Now, is that what you're getting at? Like, do you think he was popping up? Like, did you think that... Are you asking, like, as a kid, did I think he was, like, real and around here?
I mean...
Or just the idea of the devil's real?
Yeah, the idea.
I thought the idea.
That's a different topic that we can get into that. But basically, like, I understand that a lot of people think it's silly to think of, like what you mentioned, you thought of the image in your head was this red guy with horns and a pitchfork, right? And while that is like the popular depiction of it, in my realistic opinion, he doesn't look like that at all. And this is actually an interesting point. I find that the devil and demons, especially, they have an appearance that's much more lustrous, appealing to the human eye. Like, they're not going to be as scary. They can be if they choose to form it in that way. But why is a demon coming to communicate with someone in the first place?
To deceive them. To
deceive them, exactly. So they're going to appear like attractive, pretty, confident, charming, things like that. And so, like, if I were to meet the literal devil, he would probably be the hottest person. Like, objectively.
Devil's prime Brad Pitt.
Yeah. No, like, straight up, like, but more than that, because he has to be deceiving to people.
And he has the talking skills of, like, a car salesman.
Yeah. He's slick.
Spit game.
He's a slick dude. But I understand that a lot of people just don't believe in that existence.
Yeah.
Especially because I think that...
Are you saying in, like, a religious perspective or, like, just in general?
Well, both. Yeah. Like, even people from a religious perspective, a casual religious perspective, they'd be like, no, that's stupid.
Yeah.
Or especially, this is why I bring this up especially some more, is if there is a devil, there has to be demons as well. And so that kind of goes in with like ghost stories and possessions and stuff like that. And if you think those things are actually real, or a load of bull hockey, or religious propaganda even.
It is... That is an interesting question, because as a kid I'd be interested in like those ghost shows, which a lot of them obviously, all of them are obviously fake, but
good stuff though.
But the idea of that as a kid, it confused me, because when you're getting older, I guess religion almost has not a conflict, but you hear things in the church, and then you hear things about like ghost stories, and you're like, well, that would make sense, because what I've been taught is that somebody dies and their soul goes from this earth. They wouldn't stay in a graveyard. Now, I've heard so many interpretations of that where people are like, well, no, the soul doesn't per se leave. Like, some people don't believe that the soul leaves the body until, like, what's the word? Armageddon, the rapture. Some people believe that the souls are here and won't go to a heaven or hell until...
Are they sentient or dormant?
That's what I'm wondering about, because like the more you ask questions, the more I don't think they know the answer.
For sure.
Like
for sure.
People, I think humanity's just always trying to find the answer, and when you can't find that answer, you try to. Sometimes you can turn that into a spiritual answer, which gives you some sort of satisfaction,
right?
And closure.
Cool. This is my response to that. I'm not a biblical scholar, but
yeah,
I'm sort of one. Anyways,
mm-hmm.
So ghosts, hauntings, things like that. You know, your great grandpappy dies, and you think that he still lives in your grandma's house, and like you can like feel his presence or whatever. That is another form of demon deception. Does that make sense? So
I see.
If there are some horror movies that track this idea as well, like I think Annabelle Creation did that pretty similarly to how I think it would function in real life. Not that it's a realistic movie, I don't mean that, but I mean like the premise of the methods in which demons come into humans' lives, I think is very similar to that.
Using like loved ones to make their way into your.
They're like wolves in a sense. So if there's a pack of them and they're stalking a family of prey, then they're going to go for the weak ones, right? So those who are furthest from God in that sense, which could be those who have lost a loved one. They're dealing with loss. They're dealing with the pain that comes with that, and they use that pain as a fuel to bring them closer to them and trust them instead. And the way they do that is by coming in to this physical world with a form that resembles the one they might have lost. So I think they're performing in a way to make them think that they are their lost loved one, but they're actually just a demon sent from hell. So I don't believe ghosts exist, no. But I do believe in demons being very present in the world as long as people invite them in.
You know, that got me thinking about, honestly, the people I know that believe in ghosts more than anything are some of the most religious people that I know, because, you know, I'm not saying anything crazy here, but religious people are naturally spiritual. That's kind of the point.
Right.
If you subscribe to a religion, then you have a spiritual connection there. And I guess ghosts are a naturally spiritual thing, literally.
Yeah.
So like, yeah, some of the people I've met, but the more people I've met who don't subscribe to a religious way of thinking, they also just don't accept that ghosts exist or stuff like that. Like that stuff just doesn't track to them.
I get it. Though something I will say though is like ghosts in particular, I think those directly contradict what is biblical anyways. I don't know what kind of religion they would practice. I mean, there are other religions, of course, that would teach different things.
Yeah.
But according to like biblical truth and things like that, to be absent from the body is to be one with Christ, whether that is, you know, if you accept Christ or if you didn't, you know, as soon as you die, you go up to this place where you meet with God, and then you talk about where you're going.
Yeah.
So there's no real time for any soul to be lingering on earth after they've died, biblically speaking anyways.
The idea of, it's sort of what's, you know, I've had to confront within the last couple of years, 2 or 3 years, is the, gosh, this is like a very deep emotional topic.
Death, yeah.
Death,
what happens when you die?
What happens when I die? As I've gotten older, I've sort of come to the personal feeling that there is nothing after death, because it's just, I don't know, it's just something that makes me at peace somehow. The idea that like some people find that terrifying because all you've known is your existence.
Yeah.
And once that ends, people naturally think, where do those thoughts, where does it go? Because the idea that there's nothing seems almost antithetical to living, is to just not be.
Yeah,
that's an insane thing. Insane thing to think about. And I guess part of me is sort of come to the idea that there are many people who've lived on this earth who have had zero chance to even know a religion. Like, say you're one of those people born on like that North Sentinel Island, the one that's so cut off. You could live there till you're 40 years old and die, and you would never know anything. They probably have their own form of religion, and to them, they probably think this is the one religion. We don't even know what the world's like out there. So, like, they probably have their own sacred text. That's so difficult to confront. Is like who is right?
Mm-hmm.
That's what's so difficult, because like, do I live my life thinking I'm right and then there's also, the sort of guardedness that comes with religion, because then you want others to be religious,
Right.
because you want to see them be saved, loved ones, and that can cause confrontations. That can cause
For sure.
thousands of years of holy wars. Like,
There also is a lot of cockiness when it comes to protecting one's faith,
yeah,
regardless of what it is, because like, who are you to say that this one thing that you
do
chose
is
to
the right
practice
thing.
is actually correct? Like, there's a lot of ballsiness in
Yeah.
play, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that I hear a lot as a Christian, especially. They're like, where's the proof, and things like that.
And it's the kind of the thing that's always I have very clear memories of when you grow up in a church, there's almost this sort of shunning of question. Say,
Yeah.
children are curious. Children don't understand things.
Traditionally, yeah.
If a child asks a question that's like you can ask questions about the Bible, they'll answer that just fine. But if you ask questions like, well, if it says here this and this, then what hypothetical would happen? Because once you start getting into hypotheticals, that sort of starts bringing a question, and to bring in a question is a sin to a lot of religions. To have
To bring into question?
to sort of like question the word.
Do you mean doubt?
To doubt the word,
Yeah.
is starting to get into like starting to get into sin territory, or like a violation of religions. To say like, you start to question the word, and if in the Bible it says like the word is God breathed, then you take the word at what it says. So I have like memories of a kid of me like reading something in the Bible and it being like, no human is without sin. And then, that makes me think like, well, if a kid's born and they're 4 months old and they unfortunately pass away, which happens a lot, babies are fragile. It like,
Babies are fragile. Yeah.
how did that kid sin, and how does that kid go to heaven? Because that kid never truly thought like that.
Oh, you mean people who've never heard is what you're talking about right now.
Like, yeah, people who've never
Right.
understood the concept.
So this is why I say I'm not a biblical scholar, because whenever I say something, I never have the stuff to back it up. But
Yeah.
I've read it. I just can't tell you where it is. I'm sorry. Here's the thing about reading and interpretations, though. Sometimes people interpret things differently.
Mm-hmm.
That's how it is. There's context in historical writing because they don't translate perfectly to English and things like that.
Yeah.
But to answer your specific point that you just brought up, I have no clue what this verse said, but it dealt with the people who have never had the chance to hear, sticking with Christian themes here, those who have never heard of Jesus' name, and what happens to people like that if they never even had the chance to do so. Because another thing in Revelation is that God says that he won't come back until at least one person from every nation has heard Jesus' name and offered or accepted or denied it. Right. So that doesn't mean that everyone will ever hear the name Jesus, which sounds unfair, right?
Yeah.
Like, why would a loving God that wants relationship not give every single person the chance to at least hear the real deal?
Mm-hmm.
And I completely understand that's a great question. Now, the response I found was something along the lines of, Lord help me out here. I don't want to blaspheme. Yeah. But what I read and what I possibly interpreted, I could be wrong, is the idea that while if Jesus is to be the correct name, if that is the name of the one true Messiah, there are ways to get there. Now, don't get me wrong. The only way you can come to the Father is through Jesus. That, like, the Bible clearly says that. Mm-hmm. But for those who just don't even know the word exists, there is still an ongoing inward search in one's soul to find, like, the one true thing out in the world.
Yeah.
Right. And while that doesn't necessarily mean this is Jesus,
Yeah.
it kind of means like
You feel a attractiveness to this
unknown entity.
unknown entity
Right.
that you want to follow.
Yeah. And so, like, here's the thing. Someone knows what prayer is.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think that someone has to know exactly who they're praying to necessarily reach the real God at the same time. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So, in that sense, I might have said some things wrong, but it's my belief that God meets you where you're at. You know what I mean? So, like, he takes context into consideration, like, because you have to if you read the book in the first place. So I think he does the same thing.
Yeah.
He takes your specific case into context. That doesn't mean that he's going to forgive you. Oh, well, it does mean he'll forgive you if you, like, ask, but whatever. I'm rambling. I apologize, but it's
No, you're
a
fine.
very deep question.
It is. Religion in itself has been since its inception has been a hotly debated topic. People have died over it. People have,
Oh, yeah.
it's a very, and then some people want to believe like you mentioned the Kaginus, like my religion is the religion. Die. So then like,
Right, yeah.
It's always sort of, religion has such an interesting place, and we're the only creature on earth that has religion.
The capacity to think.
The capacity to even
Spiritually.
think this deeply,
Yeah.
which is also trippy. Because if you go just like a non-religious scientific route, the fact that we've advanced to the point where we've, if you believe religions are created, the fact that humans, according to like science, have grown to the point where we have, and I think that's the fact that most animals on Earth don't think about death. That's just something that happens to them. They don't consider what is my greater purpose on this mortal realm.
Yeah.
Like that.
A deer's not thinking that.
A deer's not thinking that. They just worry about how do I keep myself alive.
Yeah.
And on a very basic level, we do that.
Yeah, but I think they're purely instinctual as well.
Yeah, it's just about.
We're not.
That's true. We're humans are so complex and such a tough nut to crack when it comes to understanding our species. Dude, we've been humans so hard and so effectively.
We've humaned so hard.
We've humaned so hard that you could argue we're killing the planet. We've become so human.
Killing the game.
Which, like, from a scientific perspective, obviously you'd want to preserve the Earth, but also, wouldn't that just mean that you did it so right? That's a crazy thing to say, but
It kind of is crazy.
your species is so successful that you literally, in search of greatness, destroyed the planet you're on.
I'm going to bring up a LeBron James chat again, because there's a difference between potent success and sustained success. You know what I mean? So, like, LeBron's obviously a sustained successor, right?
Yeah.
But because he went about treating his body in ways that allowed him to continue on and be greater for longer, and if the human race doesn't follow suit in that, they'll be more like a Michael Jordan who only plays 15 seasons, right, instead of 22.
And it's crazy because human nature's gotten in the way of even that. Like, because a lot of, I imagine, the powerful, the rich, they don't imagine, and even people who are religious, they probably don't even imagine a world after. Religious people don't imagine death as a necessary bad thing, because that makes them closer to heaven and their one true God. And also, if you're not religious, you could feel the same way, where you're not afraid of dying because, all these worldly issues, even if you're not religious, they won't mean a thing to you once you die. I feel like I'm rambling because it's just so much to think about.
There's so many layers. I felt the same way. Like, I was supposed to be telling you about what happens to people who never had the chance to hear Jesus.
I mean, yeah, like stuff like that.
It's so hard to get into it. It's so hard to give like a straight, flat answer, because there really isn't one.
I feel like that has defined my life for the past 4 years, is thinking, God, what does happen once it's over? Because it could happen any second. Hopefully it doesn't happen soon, but it very well could. I'm truly not in control of a lot of that. Like, there's things I can control. There's a lot of stuff that you can, like, the amount of people who die from negligence, other things just happening. Dude, people throwing concrete off of an overpass. That's happened several times before. What? You didn't deserve that. You died anyway. There's nothing nobody... Or people die due to accidents all the time. It's just... I don't know. Death is such a difficult thing. Humans can sustain a lot of tragedy and trauma, but also death is such a hard or easy thing. Like, you can make it through a lot, but you also could just die from the smallest thing. But yeah, the topic of death is just so interesting to me, and
it's especially interesting because I think, apart from individual results of death, like obviously you cease to exist physically. That's a pretty big result. But I think the most prominent results are reflected in the ones who are left behind after one dies. The things that death does on an impact level, I find more interesting.
Like the people around you?
Like what death does to people, living people, and how it affects people and how they change.
How people act just so different.
Because it changes perspective, truly. Yeah.
And like, a wise person once said, and I can't put the quote, and I don't even know if this person's quoted, but people say that you die twice. Once when you physically die, and the second time when the last time your name is spoken.
Yeah.
Because like, that will happen unless you're like such an eternal, everlasting figure in human culture.
Like LeBron James.
Like LeBron. More seriously, like George Washington. More seriously, like...
Even then, though, like...
There will be a future where the American Empire doesn't exist.
Yeah, exactly. And who cares about our history at that point?
Yeah, I mean...
Because we don't exist.
The idea that you could be gone, but then you could be gone to the point where... Like, there's people who die every day who you'll never know their name. Or their name will hardly ever be spoken. Yeah. And eventually it'll just cease to exist. And that's... there's a peasant in the 14th century who... Their name probably hasn't been spoken since they died 5 years after they died. And you just don't think about those people.
I'm going to get really, really existential here. This is going to hurt y'all's brains for a little bit.
Oh, shit.
But have you ever heard of the egg theory?
I think you've... Okay.
It's a theory about what happens to individuals after death. What they experience after death. Right?
Okay. And
it's very complicated. So I'll try my best to explain this as quickly as I can. But it's basically, it has really heavy themes of reincarnation, right? Basically, let's say I die and I go to this astral spiritual plane, and then I'm met with what would be considered God, in a sense, right? Okay. And so God starts talking with you, and you're like, yo, am I dead? Is this heaven? And he's like, not exactly, but yes, you are dead. And he was like, okay, word. So now what? And he was like, well, I'm going to send you back. And he's like, okay, why? And then he like starts asking like the whole point of everything. And so basically this is how the belief system goes. I die and I get reincarnated into every single person in history, which would mean that you and me are the same person spiritually, but we are represented differently on a physical level. And our consciousness has been divided between us two. So now, that hurts, like, my head a lot to think about.
Yes.
Because, like, there are people I hate, too, at the same time. But that would also be you.
But you're also them.
So, in that sense, then, that would mean that all of our consciousness is put together would make some sort of ultra-conscience. And it is believed in this theory that the God you were talking to is actually a species.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so that would...
World building here.
Yeah, world building. This God would be your biological parent. And then you living out each and every Earth life of every single person that ever existed in the history of Earth. Once you finish all those life cycles, that is when you're a fully grown God, essentially. And then you reproduce and someone else does the same thing, which would also go into the multiverse theory.
Yeah.
Because there would be more than one species.
What is it? String theory, where like every reality exists, and there's one where infinite different things happen.
Yeah. That hurt my head a lot.
Boom. Welcome back, guys. Hey. I mentioned wanting to talk about one last thing, and it's, if there's no religion and there's nothing after. Another crazy thought is the universe, and this is part of the stuff that makes you think, that's so difficult to imagine. So the universe is ever expanding. Like the idea that, everything on Earth seemingly has an end, but the universe, no matter how far you go, it'll never stop. And it'll never end. And you'll always keep going on. That's crazy. But that, if that means the Earth is infinite, that means that despite the such narrow odds of it being likely, that means that there is probably definitely another planet that supports life. And if that life's grown to be human-like or complex in nature, then, what does that look like? Like, they might have their own set of religion and their own form of an exact true earth. Like, right now, where we're sitting, podcasting, there is a whole other potential planet with an entire set of history, their own possible Adolf Hitlers, their own, war in Israel. Like, that's such a insane thing to think. That hurts my brain too.
I actually had a talk about that not too long ago, like last week, because I was talking about, I wrestled with myself and I was like, okay, let's say that aliens, like we met aliens tomorrow. How would that impact your religion?
If I was still religious, if I was on the fence, it would probably kill it altogether.
Yeah.
Because the Bible mentions that God created the heavens and the earth, and it pretty
Didn't
much
mention anything else really.
It talks about life on earth and us being made in His image, but it doesn't mention okay, so if another species exists that's just as complex, if not, if they're traveling, if they're in contact with us, they are infinitely smarter than we are because they've made it here.
Yeah.
We've gotten to the moon with people. Like, the idea that they've gotten here would be insane. So, that would, the next day I'd be like, well, my life's a lie. Yeah, no.
Yeah,
because it wasn't mentioned.
Because this is kind of what I thought about it as well. I was like, because I think this is true. I think that if the Bible is truthfully word from God, right? If I am God and I'm trying to convey messages to my creation, I'm going to leave things out that they would never understand or that wouldn't really affect them. You know what I mean?
Okay.
So what I'm getting at is that there are things in the Bible that don't make sense and will never make sense because they were never meant to in the first place. And I think there are things that were never mentioned in the Bible because we don't need to know that. Yeah.
Like, imagine the book of Revelations, but even more confusing than it already is.
Like a literal lore manual on how the universe was exactly created and like how God exactly did it. We would never understand that. So there are things like that I think would never be in the Bible because they don't have a purpose other than just telling us. And so I use that same line of thinking when it came to extraterrestrial life in that sense. So it is possible that this God that I choose to believe in might have created another planet with other human life, is what I would say. Because I think that if he created intelligent life, he would also make it in his image.
It would also be human, yeah.
Yeah. And I don't know if there's like a loophole that it could look like something completely different. But it's my belief that if there are real aliens out there that are intelligent and can speak and can make technology, they would look almost exactly like us. Mm-hmm. That's what I think. Because of religion. Only because of religion. That's why I think that. But it's also interesting because, like I brought up, things that were just never meant to be known. If this God is real, then he works on a time frame that only he knows. So let's say there is a alien life out there, he could make it to where we would never meet each other in the first place. You know, like he could divinely intervene in a way to where we never make contact with an alien species, whether that be through time barriers, distance, technological barriers, things like that. You know, like one world could end theoretically before they even had the chance to meet alien life.
It's like, could you imagine he wrote his own version of the Bible for the other society that had another Jesus?
Yeah. Because if that is the case, that I was thinking about that as I meant to get into that. Thank you. I forgot about that whole part. Was that if there is another alien world, would they also have Christianity? Because they would have to if God is the real God. If the Christian God is the real God.
And understanding is the Holy Trinity, then that would also be Jesus.
Yeah.
Because Jesus is not like he was human, but he was in a very spiritual way.
Mm-hmm.
Like God was the Father.
Yeah.
God created him
Mm-hmm.
and used Mary as the vessel. So like in Jesus's post-death, his existence is more of the God abstract sort of like you can put a face to Jesus, but no one's ever really thought of putting a face to God.
True.
Because God is a sort of just
Force.
a force in the world.
Almost, yeah.
Like no one people might think of God as looking like something, but truly the Bible never describes God.
Other than light.
More than just like an all-knowing, all-omnipotent existence.
Yeah.
So like he could just make Jesus be also born in this one and die for these people.
Yeah. And that's the line of thinking I was getting into. Like, it is possible. I think it makes it way more complicated than it needs to be.
That's
like
very true.
It's way easier to just believe that the firmament is real.
Yeah,
and we've never actually been to space. Space isn't real. It's way easier to think that. Mm-hmm. But I often think that sometimes the simplest, you disagree with me on this, I think that sometimes the simplest answer isn't always the correct answer. I think things are more fluid, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. Yeah, because you were talking about sending Jesus to another alien planet, right? Mm-hmm. I think it'd be the same Jesus, but I think it'd be a different Bible because history would play out differently.
Yeah, life is not one solid thing. Mm-hmm. Like things change forever.
So like, who knows? Maybe they actually didn't kill him. Maybe they paraded him around and were like,
maybe he
this
lived to
dude's
an old
so
age,
chill.
died, and came back 3 days later.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know.
That makes you think, if there is another world out there and they did have the ability to come here, that would definitely mean that they were more peaceful than we are.
True. Yeah, that's very true.
You can't tell me right now, if we had infinite space travel in like the United States, that it wouldn't be a huge controversial issue that engulfed many different countries. Like there'd be laws regarding what space travel is. There'd be people trying to shoot your spaceship out of the sky. Like if we could lock in for maybe like 20 years, the human race could do some truly magnificent things.
It's true.
If we were just like, hey guys, let's stop doing this oil stuff because it's clearly causing issues. Let's go towards that.
Let's do dark matter.
I was going to say, use what we got that's reusable. Maybe, get rid of all these coal plants, stop blowing up mountains. Let's go to nuclear energy, guys, because that's infinitely more reliable and it's not as hazardous as coal is to the environment. So, boom. Which nuclear energy, that's a whole different conversation. Did you know how safe those things are? Like,
I have no clue how nuclear things work.
It's a little, those are trippy too. Like, you'd have to really get a scientist to explain, like, basically you heat up stuff and that causes energy. But also it causes like one nuclear plant.
But isn't heat energy?
It is, but it's like...
It makes more energy?
It's like chemical reaction. Think of like an intense chemical reaction, like nuclear weapons. It's the same idea as...
I don't know how they work.
It's basically like nuclear fission, I think is the word, or nuclear fusion. One of the two. Fission might be energy. Fusion might be the bomb. But it's the idea that you create so much energy that it just expands so hard. Like the fact that humans have not, cured cancer, but we found a way to create a bomb so devastating.
Made of pure energy?
Like a bomb that's like mathematically so deadly.
Yeah, I don't get that either.
And we went from like, and it's funny how long we went without having something that powerful, which you could argue it's made the world more peaceful for the bigger nations, because big nations can't attack each other now. But if you live in a country that lives between these big nations, you're kind of SOL. Like, if you're in Vietnam or Korea, you didn't have nuclear weapons, and those two nuclear powers, they couldn't fight each other, but they can pay money for people to fight for them. And that's sort of, I don't know, been like the U.S. And there's like rules of combat basically to like having nuclear weapons. We can't fight Russia, but we can support Ukraine. But we can't support them too much because then Russia would threaten to nuke us. And they would draw that line in the sand. And that sort of just exists. And sometimes you get to those points in history where one country says, let's see how far this goes. And then you get like John F. Kennedy at 3 a.m. on a phone call trying to stop Cuba from getting nuclear weapons type of scary part. I love American history. I love history in general. But the idea that like in those first years with nukes, imagine you live in a world. Imagine you're born in the 1920s and you just know warfare as like, dude, shit. You're born in the 1900s. You know warfare is, you know, guns are getting better. Things are getting more advanced. Once you're 60, you've gotten to the point where a country could, like, I could be sitting here with a button in my hand and I could just completely wipe out Moscow by sending sends a rocket to space that just targets and can hit within 20 feet of where I tell it to. The fact that we've gotten smart enough to where we can mathematically calculate that blows my mind almost as much as the life and death situation. Like the fact that we've mapped out how to kill each other so effectively, but less people have died from war since nuclear weapons have been around.
I guess that is true. And
because people are too scared, and they've only been around for, I mean, shoot, this is the 80th year anniversary since the first atomic bombs were dropped. And as a kid, that confused me. What's the difference between an atomic bomb and a nuclear weapon? A lot. Because if you took an atomic bomb and every nuke was that powerful, things would be slightly less scary. But no one's ever launched a nuclear weapon.
That's how strong they are.
Like, the fact that we have so many of them in this world, but no one's used a single one, is a testament to just how strong it is.
That is crazy.
Like, the U.S. has like 5,000. You would need not even a tenth of that to completely wipe out every square inch of land in the world.
I was just thinking, like, how many of their assets would just wipe the world flat.
From what I understand, to completely destroy the planet, you'd need 256 nuclear weapons. That's all you need.
That's actually more than I thought.
But
Good job, girl. Way to go, Earth.
And honestly, if you're just going for like, hey, let's just wipe out this entire country, probably just a handful, frankly. Like Castle Bravo, that's the strongest one we have. That could probably take out the entirety of Beijing and the greater area. One bomb, whole city's gone. If you wanted to take out, crazy. You could wipe a whole country out. You could glass a nation just with a nuclear weapon, and then you have the after effects. I think I read about Russia has a nuclear weapon that is so strong that if it is launched, it specifically causes a runoff after it blows up, where it like spills into the ocean and then poisons the entire ocean of the entire planet. Because
what's the purpose of that?
The point of that is we just lost this war. Fuck it. Take the whole planet out.
That's insane.
They literally have like suicide trigger versions of nuclear weapons.
That's crazy. I did not know that.
And like we've gotten to that point. Like we just have gotten so good at mathematics and science that we're like, let's harness fire in the palm of our hand. Shout out Doc Ock. You have the strongest power ever.
We haven't had any superhero talks on the episodes yet, and we need to do that next time.
We do. But
because I'm a nerd. Okay, sorry.
But and could you imagine starting on the project? Like, We had 2 of them, and we wiped out. I don't know if you've ever seen the photos, like in depth, of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. It's just insane to look at. The fact that that was an entire functioning, bustling, like depot of human life, and it just was gone for the most part. And the crazy thing is, for the people there, it's confusing because, from what I understand, nuclear weapon goes off. No matter where you're at, you see a flash in your vision of a white light, and that's how you know it's gone off. And you won't know until it just like you're gone. But you see that white flash, but if you're staring at where it drops, you would go blind instantly. Which, if you're close enough to get a straight stare of it blowing up, you're probably dead anyway. But the idea that, like, our parents were raised in an era where you were taught how to survive a nuclear blast, which, not true. They taught them to duck and cover, same way you do a tornado.
That'll buff.
But there's this whole like PSA we watched in 7th grade. It's like this informational video called like how to do the duck and cover technique to survive a nuclear blast. If you're caught in the open, just like get close to a drain, like a sewer grate, and just you'd turn into a pile of ash instantly.
Yeah. But they're just rubbing insult to injury, putting you in a really sus position when people find you.
Face down, ass up.
Yeah.
Just your body's petrified.
Do you think they found any like people doing sussy activities from Pompeii? Like, was there like a 12-year-old boy with a stiff sock or something?
Yanking it?
Yeah.
He's just like, well, I'm about to die, so might as well.
Might as go. He died doing what he loved.
Whatever. Or like, that's also an insane piece of history. I feel like as a kid, hearing about Pompeii for the first time, I was like, this is probably like a cornerstone of history. People hardly think about it.
No one cares.
Like that.
There's a lot of things like that are crazy, but no one really talks about.
As a kid, due to the movie, and like, you know, you have this like little kid like super fascinations with things. Like the Titanic probably seemed like it's a big deal, but it's not like on the same level as 9/11. Even then, that's pretty new. But
Yeah.
like, I thought as a kid, I'm
The
like, dude, the
Titanic.
Titanic was probably the worst thing to ever happen to the world. And then I was like,
Well, that's not true.
but I imagine like this is probably a super big issue. Dude, there's probably, you know, people don't think about the Titanic ever.
Or what about when that stupid girl ate from that tree that she wasn't supposed to?
Oh my god! Then she fed some to her husband.
That dumb girl.
God.
That's the actual worst thing to happen in the world. But no one talks about that, do they?
I was gonna. Well, a lot of people talk about it if you believe in
If
it.
you go in the right place, yeah.
If you believe in it, you definitely talk about it quite a bit. Because talk about.
We've gotten to a
fumbling.
lot of beliefs in this episode.
I know.
Yeah.
We're talking about a lot of things that we just we just don't understand.
But
Even
no
with-
one does. And you know,
Even
one of
nuclear
the
weapons.
one of the big things that I neglected to mention when we talked about that stuff is we can think about the actuality of these circumstances. We can try our best to overcomplicate them, but why does it matter? That's probably the biggest takeaway, is what I gather from it every time I have this chat. I'm always like, does it even matter? Like, until the aliens come up on my doorstep, it doesn't.
Why do I think about them?
Yeah,
That's the anxiety in us.
it is.
That's the intuition.
Humans and uncertainty,
Don't mix.
they don't mix.
You want the world to make sense.
Which is ironic because we're the only organisms capable of recognizing uncertainty.
That's true.
You know?
Dude, we're one of the only creatures that can recognize our own reflection.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
that when I found that out in sociology, that blew my mind. There's like us and like 3 or 4 different animals that understand. Your cats and dogs, when they see themselves in the mirror,
Who's that?
they don't make eye contact because they think it's another creature.
Yeah.
Like humans, monkeys, and like elephants are the only animals.
Not dolphins?
Dolphins is a good example. Like dolphins or whales, like really smart for animals.
They are very smart for some reason.
But those are like the only animals like that are complex enough to even notice like, oh, that's me I'm looking at. Like
Yeah.
animals bark at their reflection all the time because they don't understand like the self, like what you
Yeah.
are.
Yeah.
And that's trippy too.
It's kind of deep, actually.
They don't understand themselves.
Yeah.
They don't know
But
who they are.
Likewise, humans are the same way, just more abstractly. That's what's so deep about it, I feel like.
Humans are always trying to find their sense of self.
Mhm.
Like, who am I?
And until they do, they look like those dogs barking at themselves.
Damn.
Because they're just stabbing themselves trying to find what actually feels right in this world.
And it's,
Was that hard, chat?
Chat,
was that
comment,
tough? Clip that.
Hashtag tough. Hashtag Austin be thinking. Hashtag Nostradamus. But like,
Hashtag philosopher.
but yeah, life is just like trying to find your sense of self. And some people struggle with that so much that they'd rather just not be alive.
Yeah.
And that's a difficult
that's
thing
very true. Yeah.
to think about. Like, things can be so trivial and so like, because imagine trying to tell somebody who is struggling with bills, like, dude, imagine the more abstract. They tell you, dude, I
have other things to worry about.
I'm up to my neck in medical, real estate, whatever debt. I can't imagine it. Like, for every one of two guys on a podcast who think about the complexity of life, there are people who just don't care about that stuff. They're just like, dude, I'm born on this rock. I'll live. I'll pay my taxes. I'll be a functioning member of this planet. But other than that, I don't think about it.
Yeah.
I don't imagine it.
Because, I mean, like, truthfully, how often do you think about the complexities of the world?
Yeah, like when you...
Like, they don't happen often.
And that's what I think is part of also human nature is like your brain can't always be thinking about that or else you'd go crazy.
Yeah.
So you break...
That ties in with what I was saying earlier about, biblically speaking, there are things that were just never mentioned because we were never meant to understand or know things.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I think humans have reached a state of awareness, some of them have anyways, that makes life hell.
Yes.
Yeah. You know, have you ever heard the saying, ignorance is bliss?
It is.
The smartest people are the most depressed people in the world. You know,
They're tortured.
They're tortured by their own intelligence. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you have people that tend to understand these more groundbreaking philosophical things, it messes with them because the ancient man wasn't equipped to handle that kind of knowledge.
Yeah, think about, we are so privileged to be living in a world where it's a famous John Adams quote, which I'm going to paraphrase hard, where he's like, I study, and it's like very hardcore task. It's like, I study shipbuilding and yada yada, so my son can learn like mathematics and this, and he learns those so his son can sculpt and paint, and like we do the hard stuff to make future generations do easy stuff. Like somebody, like I mentioned before, born in the Middle Ages, all they know, most of them knew, I go to church, I pay 15% of the little money I make to that, I pull crops for this person, and I live till I'm 40 and I die of a bacterial infection. Like, that person could give a crap about the complexities of life. And it's like, even now, you're born in, and it doesn't have to be Africa, but say like in countries like Central Africa where there's government marred by a civil war, people are starving. It's like that musical, The Book of Mormon, basically gets at that. You know, child soldiers, people dying of diseases that they can't cure. People are using you for exploiting your country for resources and gain. You know, to them, religion, complexity, stuff like that hits a back burner because they're worried about making it to day number 2 and then day number 3 and day number 4.
Yeah.
They don't assume that that's a given. And we're lucky enough to be in a room right now, which some people don't even have rooms they can go to.
It's true.
And they can't discuss the complexities of life because they're more worried about, is my son going to die of a bacterial infection? Or am I going to die of a bacterial infection? Is somebody going to kill me in my sleep? Like, that's stuff that I'm so lucky to never have to think about.
For sure, I agree. What I will say, though, is that, and this is purely the Christian Austin talking, but the spiritual world is more overbearing than the physical one. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So, like, yes, we are incredibly lucky, and people who do tend to be in those situations, they have to worry about that. But I think it's very interesting to see how the most important things in life are kind of always on the back burner. Like you mentioned. Like the things that will affect you the most are things that are really swept under the rug and really small. They're like the fine print of everything. Because say the Christian faith is true. You live on this earth for 70 years and you get so sucked up in what's going on in that life that you make no time to plan where you're staying after you die, if that's true. You know what I mean? And it's kind of crazy that these big things that are happening right in front of us are actually smaller than they actually are in the grand scheme of things. Grand scheme as in after death.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that's kind of freaky.
It is crazy. And I guess an argument for religion is if there is nothing after and you spent 60 years, living a life in full faith, that also doesn't matter when you die if you did do that. You might think of it as wasted time, but you also wouldn't know because you would be dead. If that makes sense.
You're saying if there was nothing to experience
if
after
there's
death,
nothing after, but you still lived your entire life in like full faith,
it would be for nothing.
It would be for nothing,
Yeah.
but also that wouldn't matter
It wouldn't matter
because you wouldn't know.
Well, yeah, but that's what a lot of people think as well, is it wouldn't matter because it never did in the first place. So, like, if there is nothing after life, if there isn't some grand force that has a different sort of theme and motive for what the purpose of existence is, then everything you've experienced ever and everything you ever will experience will be for no reason at all. Which means that all of the happiest moments in your life and all the sufferings and all of the potential learning and growth that you've made was literally for nothing.
It's literally like humans learn so that other humans after them, once they die, can know. Like, the guys who dug up dinosaur bones, they learned a lot about dinosaurs. That didn't matter to them when they died because they all died.
Yeah.
However, somebody else picks up where they left off and they advance that knowledge to a place that it wasn't at before. And I guess that's the beauty of knowledge, is that if you imagine it selfishly, it means nothing. If you imagine it as a pushing forward, then, or as an eternal thing almost, then others will just take your knowledge and they'll build.
Yeah.
Like, somebody invented the light bulb, Thomas Edison.
Yeah.
People took the light bulb and made it better. Didn't mean that his contributions were for nothing because people changed what he did. But it does mean that his steps built the ground for infinite human knowledge. So if you ever think that what you're doing, viewer, is worthless, or if you ever feel worthless, just know it's not, because your life is what you make of it anyway, and your knowledge will always one day benefit somebody else. And if you make a positive impact on a single person, then that means you've done more than so many others before you have.
Well said. Well said. Yeah. I do appreciate that kind of perspective. I kind of think that falls in line with almost a Darwinism type of survival first. Like when it came to Thomas Edison, like his life definitely wasn't meaningless in the grand scheme of human history, because that would just mean that human history, the point of existence in human history, was just to make the future generations have a better chance of survival, which would make the only purpose for existence survival.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I get that.
And I guess on a primal level, that's what we do, is just survive. But easier.
True. Yeah.
And that's what life's about, is making it to that next day. Sometimes it is. And if that's not your truth, then sometimes you just have to confront that. Because some people might not want to make it to the next day. And that's a tough part of life, It
is. But I guess we're going to get more serious,
Whoa.
I guess. For people in that situation, Luke said it earlier, your life isn't meaningless. It's what you make of it. And if you go about it in a way where you think it's meaningless and you think that you don't contribute anything and you feel worthless, then that's just how you're going to think, So it's a hard thing, but people have to be aware and honest about that kind of thing. Like, if you feel that kind of way, you got to talk to somebody. And then you talk to somebody, if you trust that person to talk to them, they're obviously going to tell you, hey, you're a cool person.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like it's important to have you around, and you have to put your head down and get to work.
Absolutely.
And like it's really hard, and that we talked about this last week with like discipline and how it's hard to make the right choices for your health,
Mm-hmm.
and you know, especially mental health. It takes a lot of work. It's not easy, and if you're someone who's more susceptible to thought like suicidal thoughts, depression, anxiety, things like that, then you're already at a disadvantage, and you have to work extra hard, and
Yeah.
that does suck.
Life's not fair.
It's not.
People are born, you know, people born without arms and legs, and I'm lucky enough to be born. I mean, there's very few, but they're still people. There are people born with disabilities they might never be able to overcome, but they make a meaning out of life.
Yeah.
Like some of the happiest people I know have been people who've had
Very little.
mental or physical disabilities.
Mhm.
And they make so much out of life. And that's something it's something to really look at to give you hope. Like I've seen people in financial hardship, people who seem like they've hit their wits end, but they refuse to ever give up.
Mm.
And that's hard to do a lot of the time. Like when you feel like everything's closing in on you, it can be hard to see that. But you know, drawing on other people, seeking help, that's really all you can do, because at some point it's your mind's your worst enemy. Like you're just going to continue
For sure.
you're just going to continue to reinforce your thoughts. Sometimes you need somebody to tell you that there is a light,
Mhm.
there is a shining city on a hill that
Yeah.
you'll reach. Like, and it's not a sign of weakness to
Yeah.
ask for help.
At the end of the day, humans are meant to be social creatures.
Of course.
You know, they were never meant to do something by themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And that rings true even for you, Superman, Superwoman,
Mm-hmm.
if you're watching this. So I know it's Men's Mental Health Month. So men, don't be afraid to talk to people.
Don't.
But men and women and anyone who identifies as in between, guys, life's precious, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And if you need help, talk to someone.
Everyone's
please.
unique. Everyone has a perspective on life that adds
Mhm.
to humanity as a whole.
Yeah.
And that's a beautiful thing.
Mhm. We got very wholesome there.
I know.
We appreciate you viewers, especially if you're watching this. If you're
Of
watching
course.
this, you're very important,
We need to
actually.
clip this, because
Yeah.
this is what people need to hear.
Mhm.
Hashtag inspirational, hashtag
We love you guys.
mental health, hashtag awareness, hashtag FYP,
Hashtag TikTok, hashtag trending.
hashtag trending page, hashtag Charlie D'Amelio. Just throwing on the buzzwords. That'll probably make it hit a couple algorithms.
For sure, for sure.
I was gonna say, I think this is a good place to end off on.
That's an episode.
an optimistic view of
After
life.
a very morbid.
A very morbid, very real conversation about
Yeah.
what comes after. But thank you for tuning in. Again, don't forget to ask for help. Don't forget to seek, assistance, because no one does it alone. Even if they seem like they do. Even the people who seem the most isolated have something out there or somebody
Yeah.
that gives them hope for the next day.
Yeah. You know, and especially even whether you're religious or whether you're anything not like that,
Mm-hmm.
all those people preach the same thing, is that you can't do it alone.
You can't do it alone.
You can't do it alone. No one was
No one's
designed
strong
to do
enough.
that.
No
Right.
one's strong enough to make it through on their own.
Yeah. And
Mm-hmm.
you experience things in life.
That's a good point.
So experience them with everyone.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you for tuning in. And that has been episode 5, Life After Death. You make a new sound every time, I feel like.
I know.
But thank you for tuning in. And we'll see you beautiful, mentally healthy viewers in the next one.
Mwah.